Hi, I'm Joshua Miller, and this is the premiere of our episode, the premiere episode of the CinemaScope. Our guest today is Mr. Greg Schreiner out of LA. He is a musician, pianist. He played the 1984 Olympics, and he is the present, uh, I think, and always has been, president of Marilyn Remembered, the oldest in the world Marilyn Monroe fan club. And so we're going to have a discussion with Greg about how he became familiar with, in his past, where he's from, and how he became familiar with Hollywood, how he became aware of Marilyn Monroe, and then we'll talk about the club. So um, I met Greg in 2004, and then we'll tell our story about that because it's kind of funny how we kind of came close during that time. So anyway, Greg, can you give me some background on yourself, a little biographical background on yourself?
Okay, well, I grew up in northern Illinois in a very small town, with very rural, so I didn't have a lot of exposure to the big city life. I went to college initially in Illinois at Millikan University, where I graduated with a master's, or excuse me, a bachelor's in piano. And then I went to Western Illinois University and got myself a master's degree in piano. And then I lived for a little while in New York State. Then I moved to Florida for 5 years, where I was at the University of South Florida. Then I moved out here to Los Angeles. And that's sort of been my background as far as where I came from, at least.
Okay, okay. So when did you first become aware of the escape into movies?
Well, I always loved movies. I think partially because I didn't have anything else to do. When I was growing up, there was very little in the way of entertainment because it was a small town. So TV was the big thing, and there were old movies on TV. And I think I just fell in love with Hollywood and all that glamour and glitz. And um, my initial, I think, Maryland exposure was at a drive-in movie theater. Probably was around 8 years old, maybe, and we went to see Some Like It Hot. And I just fell in love with Marilyn. And I thought, wow, this is the most amazing star I've ever seen, and I really want to know more about her. So that's, I think, where initially I got excited about Marilyn Monroe.
Was there something about the film, a specific scene or line that stuck with you?
I think it was just that she was so beautiful and so glamorous and so stunning. And I had never seen anybody like that ever. Uh, in where I lived, there was that it was a rural community. There was nobody glamorous like that, and I just thought she was so beautiful. And then I think as I studied her and found out more about her, I fell in love with her as a person because she was just so beautiful inside too. And I think that's what really captured me more than anything.
I mean, those of us who know about her personal life know that she had her demons. She had a very tough life personally, but she had a very beautiful spirit. Um, what do you think you respect most about her? Um, what qualities do you respect most about her?
Well, I think that she was her spirit was so gentle and kind and loving, and she projects that on the screen. I think when you see her, you just fall in love with her because she's such a lovely person, and that inner spirit, I think, shines through on the big screen and in film, and not only film but also on photographs as well. um, there was just a generousness to her, and a loving quality that you just you everybody, women and men alike, I think, just fell in love with her because she was
Mhm.
so wonderful.
Well, obviously, Fox sold her as sex, and that's how they made their money off of her.
Yeah.
Um, Do you think if they'd packaged her differently, that she would have been as successful?
Well, I don't know that they would even have considered that. That wasn't something that sold movie tickets, being sweet, unless you were a Shirley Temple or somebody like that, I guess. Sex was what was selling, and that's what they were promoting in a sense through Marilyn as a sex symbol. And uh, she certainly was effective in that capacity. She was able to radiate that quality on the screen. But also beyond the sexuality part, I think there was this sort of sweet childlike quality that was coupled with it, which was so unique. And I think that is really why audiences were so attracted to her because it didn't put anybody off. Even women were loving her because they found her so lovely as
Mhm.
a person.
Yeah, so Some Like It Hot, of course, if people don't know about it, it's a story of two men who witnessed the St. Valentine's Day massacre and joined an all-women's band in drag, Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon, and Marilyn is one of the women in the group who's always being chased after for her drinking and threatened to be thrown out of the group. And so it's a comedic role, but she did have a handful of dramatic roles. And I think what I appreciated is that she could act. She had the ability. She had the gift of acting. She had it, and she certainly proved it when she left Fox in the 50s. I don't remember what year that was, 57. That she said that she broke her contract and left and went to study at the Actors Studio with Lee Strasberg and said, "I want to be a serious actress," And my favorite film is The Misfits. It's very dark and it's very stark, and shot in Reno in the summer.
Mm.
Why they chose to shoot there in the summer, I have no idea. As hot as it was, but um, I think you told me that her favorite film had been Don't Bother to Knock, which was a drama.
Well, I think she appreciated that the role gave her a depth that she really loved, that she could really show her acting off. Even though that was so early in her career, it's amazing that she acted as well as she did because she hadn't had a lot of experience. That was her first really serious major role that she'd ever had in film. Until then, except for Ladies of the Chorus, every role had been not a major role, just a small part that this is the first time she was actually the lead in the movie, and she holds her own and it really does well. Um, and it had, I think, a lot of, she may have resonated with some of the qualities of that particular character, dealing with mental illness and rejection and things that Marilyn herself was had dealt with it to some extent.
Do you think it was also the mental illness that her mother had that she drew on?
Probably, because I don't think Marilyn herself was really mentally ill. It's just that she had been around other people that had, like her mother, and even her grandmother
Mhm.
had been dealing with mental illness. So she certainly had history to draw upon for that role, and it comes off well. She's very successful in what is basically a B picture, but she's good in it.
It is a good film, and of course, Marilyn had some demons, like I said. She definitely, I think, had what they would call today post-traumatic stress disorder from the childhood sexual abuse she went through. Um, with the night terrors that she had and things like that, and the insomnia that she went through and whatnot, but not probably not full blown and some depression, but probably not full blown psychosis and that sort of thing, to anything like that. And I think had she lived and completed the slave contract to Fox, with Something's Got to Give and one more picture past that, which they were only in talks about and never finished before she died.
Hmm.
we would have had maybe some European film or something much more creative that we could have really been
Yeah,
proud of, you
it's
know.
really hard to know.
It is hard to say.
We can only guess what she might have ended up doing with her life and her film career, but it looked like there was still a lot of potential ahead for her and a lot of wonderful roles that she could have played and a lot more that she could have given the world.
But she was really coming into her own. I mean, buying the house, you know, and Joe DiMaggio only having come back into her life a short time before, you know, with the Payne Whitney hospitalization, you know, where they
Yeah,
put her in a straitjacket in a padded room for a couple of days. I mean, that was that was a nightmare from hell. Um, and her doctor talked her into signing herself in there and said and claimed she had no idea that it would be that way. I think that was a lie. Um, or it was just poor malpractice. But I do know that Marilyn, from what I've read, told her exactly how she felt about it.
right.
You know, and I think I was surprised to learn that she had no problem standing up for herself. You know,
And she
starting with
certainly she did. She came through in shining colors and got Joe DiMaggio there to get her out, and yeah, she really advocated for herself.
what do you think happened with the Miller marriage? I mean, do you think that he couldn't deal with her problems, or he just didn't want to, or he lost love for her, or what happened there?
You know, I've only go by what I read. I didn't obviously know him at all. I just think that he took on someone who he really wasn't able to totally take care of. I think she was more than he was willing to give forth. Um, and she certainly probably had a lot of demons that he needed to help with, and I think he just didn't want to after a while. Um, I think there was a love there at one point, and I don't know. Not knowing him personally, I can only go by what I've read about him. He doesn't seem like he was the warmest, cuddliest person in the world.
He just seemed to come to resent her and kind of expect her to kill herself.
Yeah, and then there was there was certain bitterness, I think, in his thinking after a while, and I don't know.
And of course, Joe, at her urging, got therapy, and it helped him, and he was able to come back into her life and be there for her. So
Yeah, he was there at the end. Whether they would have ever been married or it would have worked out that way, I don't know. Because Joe, I think, was fundamentally a very old-fashioned kind of guy with ideas about marriage that I don't think necessarily meshed with Marilyn's ideas of what.
well, I think they were at very different places during the first marriage.
Oh,
I
no
mean,
question about it.
he was at the end of his career, she was at the beginning of hers,
He was
and
thinking housewife, and she certainly wasn't going to do that. That was
I
not
think he was very upset about the blatant sexuality. He was very upset about her
that
displaying
too.
that,
Yeah,
you
a
know.
lot of things.
But
Definitely.
he came to be there for her as a good friend
Hmm.
and as a dedicated friend.
I
And
would agree. I
I
would
think that was
agree.
a beautiful thing. You
And he was
know,
basically a good guy. I think, particularly later, after he sort of had a chance to reflect on where he had come from and what he was doing, suddenly he was able to really, I think, realize the mistakes he had made, and maybe to kind of change his life to be more the way that Marilyn would be able to work with him.
I think it's really sad that we don't have from him any kind of record of their relationship, and that's his right to have that
Oh, he
in
was a very private
privacy.
man,
I'll
and
say, yeah,
obviously no
there is
books were
no,
written. Yeah.
yeah, there are biographies written, you know, and secondhand stories, but uh, we know he sent for 20 years to bouquet of flowers to her crypt. Um, I think it destroyed him when she died. It's apparent from the photographs.
Well, he never married again. I don't know that he even dated again, to my knowledge. So I guess she was the love of his life, uh, and that's the way it was.
I think she was from the beginning, you know. from the time they married, you know.
Hmm.
It just it just didn't work out. The marriage, it's like two people can be very in love, they just can't be married.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I think a lot
you
of
know,
people have been through that kind of relationship where they love someone, but yet it just doesn't work
but
for what.
it may have worked a second time. We just didn't have time
Yeah,
to see if it would,
maybe.
you know.
We'll never
We
know.
we only had what, a year, less than a year.
Less than 9 months. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
Um, so I'll say for me, you know, I was born in Illinois, but Southern Illinois, and I was aware of this image of this woman, you know, with her skirt blowing up, you know, that sort of thing. Uh, Marilyn Monroe, but I had never seen a moving picture of her,
Hmm.
and I didn't see that until 1990. My aunt was working as a reporter for Fox Television in Colorado Springs, and we were going up to her house one night, and my mom said, "There's a documentary on tonight about Marilyn Monroe, and I want you and your sister to watch it." So we did, and it was Henry Shipper's documentary about Something's Got to Give, where
Hmm.
they pieced together some of the scenes and stuff like that, and had interviews of some of the crew, and Whitey Allen, her makeup man, and Marjorie Pletcher, her wardrobe lady, and everything, and who was Whitey's wife, who came to be Whitey's wife. So that was the first time I ever saw Marilyn in movement, and I was mesmerized by what I still consider today to be her most sophisticated appearance on film, and probably most ethereal
Hmm.
appearance. And I wish the picture had been completed, although it was not. They never finished the script. They couldn't figure out how to do that. They fired the first writer. They brought on Walter Bernstein, and they haven't touched this story since 2001, when they did the documentary on her birthday on AMC. Um, she didn't want to do it. She knew she was under this slave contract to Fox. They didn't seem to know what the hell they were doing either. They fired David Brown as producer, brought in a friend of Ralph Greenson, who was her psychoanalyst, to be the producer. He was aware that she was having drug problems, and goes to the heads of the studio and says she's not ready to shoot this. And they said, she's going to shoot it. She's going to start shooting it right away. And he says, well, what if I told you she had a heart attack? Well, then we put off production, you know. And he said, well, then what's the difference? Well, with this we can get insurance. With that we can't. You know, they had no regard. They had no regard for her health, other than the drugs. She was suffering from the flu and sinusitis. She was very sick, and they were pushing her to get this movie in the theaters by Christmas to pay on Cleopatra, which turned out to be a total bomb anyway. Um, One of the worst films ever made. Elizabeth Taylor threw up when she saw it, at the premiere. Um, However, we did capture some great moments with Marilyn. Uh, Shot for Something Got to Give, the skinny dip, playing with the kids, uh, the impression of the Swedish nurse with Dean Martin. And I know you have the script, or a version of the script there, and a book that was written a book that I don't agree with because it's very conspiracy laden, but the first part of it is very factual based on the production,
Hmm.
which was The Last Take by um,
Peter Brown.
Peter Brown. Yeah, yeah. But that was my introduction to Marilyn, and then I began to see her other films. And The Misfits became my favorite. So, you know, um, I wondered if we could take a quick break.
Sure.
All right, hold on.
Putting on hold.
So I think that pretty much wraps up, something's got to give, except that, they got together and they fired her because she was there for 16 of 32 shooting days. They shot everything they could around her. Uh, and she did the best she could. Um, of course, they said all of her footage is unusable. But tell me about, because you had a hand in this with Henry Shipper when you got the videotapes originally in 1990. Were you surprised at the quality of acting?
Um, yeah, I was very shocked actually because as you mentioned, the rumor had been from the studio that the footage was unusable, that Marilyn was in like a daze, she wasn't any good. And then when we got the actual footage to look at it, it was totally not that way at all. She was absolutely fabulous. No sign of any of that. So obviously, for whatever reason, they lied to, I guess, get insurance money or whatever from the production shutting down. But in fact, Marilyn was quite wonderful, and I'm so sorry that we are never going to be able to see the entire film because it would have been great to have a little more Marilyn to watch. But I'm
I think
grateful that we do have the footage we have, and as you know, in the second documentary done on it, they actually completed the film up to the point where she died. So at least we have about half of the film available.
yeah, and it's not her death isn't really a topic I like to go into. Um, Mostly because if I meet a new guy I'm on a date with, or you know, um, whatever, and I bring up that I'm a fan, um, I just hear a lot of crap, and I don't get into that. I don't get into the rumor mill and all that, and I think it was an unfortunate accident, and I leave it at that. So, um, you know, um, and it was, you know. Um, but tell me about how. Well, tell me about the very early days of uh, going to Westwood, where she's in her crypt.
Hmm.
I know it's numbered, but I don't know the number. Um, but tell me how Marilyn Remembered started.
Okay, well, I moved to Los Angeles in 1979 in the fall. So the first time I had an opportunity to visit her grave on August the 5th was 1980, and I would make the journey there to pay my respects to her. And in 1981, I ran into some other people there, uh, three other people, in fact, that were also there for the same reason. And we got to talking and introduce each other and decided that we should do something for her on a more permanent basis rather than just showing up at the crypt. So we decided in 1982 to actually have a memorial service for her at the crypt, which we actually then ended up doing. And several other people showed up in addition, and we enjoyed it so much that we decided to actually form Marilyn Remembered, which is a club which pretty much met every month for many, many years, maybe 20 years, with a meeting in addition to the memorial service. And it's grown into now a much larger organization of several thousand people. And it's an exciting thing. We've accomplished a lot of good things, I think, over the years, including, of course, doing memorial service every year for her since 1982.
And of course, now pre-COVID, you did a luncheon at your house,
Yes, we
sandwiches,
did.
that
Every
sort of thing.
year, I would invite people back to my home for a luncheon. It just was a great way to sort of catch up on our lives of all the people that love Marilyn, and I always enjoyed that so much. Um, the last 2 years we're not able to do it because of COVID. We're hoping this year actually to have a reception for Marilyn outside of the chapel. for everyone, so they don't have to go anywhere else to go to that. It'll be an evening service rather than a day service. So that's what we're kind of aiming for at the moment.
Well, 2004 was my first pilgrimage out there, and United lost my bags. So I got to go to the memorial in a dirty t-shirt and holy shorts. And it was
Nobody
at
noticed. Nobody noticed.
nobody noticed, nobody cared, and I got to talk to Gene Allen, who was had worked with Cukor on several films as the art director and executive producer on Something's Got to Give, and he talked with me for a while, his wife. And I met so many kind people that worked with her. It was opening for me, eye-opening for me, that these were just people, it's just their job, these were not just elevated gods, these were their job, they were just normal people. And it was so nice, so refreshing. I think it was David Brown that said the myth far outweighs the reality. And it's true. But it was during the luncheon that I fell asleep on a couch for some reason, in your living room.
Well, you probably were exhausted.
Yeah. Well, and it wasn't for 5 years that I figured out that had been the one that she bought in Mexico in May of '62 for the new house on Holland Drive. And it's been recovered in gold velvet, and it was originally red leather. And so I kind of hold a resentment against the people who were with me that nobody woke me up to say we're leaving. But you were kind enough to wake me up and say everybody's gone. I've planned a private small dinner party. You're welcome to stay. I will take you to tonight's events, and they're not far from your hotel. And that was the kindest thing. I mean, you don't expect that from a stranger, and you don't expect that in LA of all places. And I think it's probably um, the Midwesterner in us, that is like you were very kind to me, and you taught me some lessons through the way you treated me on that, and I'll be forever grateful. So, but I always thought that was a funny story that, everyone left me, and here I am sitting on Marilyn's couch. But it's a fun story to tell people, that I
Yeah,
slept on Marilyn's
it
couch.
was. Well, I'm glad it worked out well for you.
Tell me about some of the charity work that you do with Marilyn Remembered.
The what kind of work?
The charity work.
Ah, well, we have done a lot of things to promote Marilyn with charities that we feel she would have been a part of. I think the most uh, memorable one was probably when we did a function at the home where she stayed, the orphanage, um, Hollygrove. We did a big event there, and we raised a great deal of money, which we then donated to the home in her name. And I always tried to do good things for her and to promote Marilyn's name with other charities as well. But we don't have a lot of money, so we can't do a lot of that. But we do what we can to let people know that Marilyn is still in her and indirectly helping out the world.
Um, so, um, so you've done a lot of things that you felt would have been important to her.
Yeah, and we've had events, a lot of events that were around Maryland. We done exhibitions. We did a huge one in the Roosevelt Hotel, honoring her. We and we try to always, whatever we do, we try to do it in a very positive way. We're trying to now, and I'm excited about this, have an exhibit at the new Motion Picture Academy Museum, which just opened up a few months ago. And for us, that would be a great thrill that the Academy would finally recognize how important she was to filmmaking. And so we're crossing our fingers that that exhibit will take place.
Mhm. Tell me about her refrigerator.
Well, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, something like that, I was uh, told there was an ad in the LA Times, someone advertising that they were selling Marilyn Monroe's refrigerator. Well, you have to always be a little careful. People say anything and put Marilyn's name to it. And there's still a lot of that going on today. If you go on eBay or lots of other places, they're selling a lot of fake Marilyn stuff. But um, the good news is I actually had some photos that Eunice Murray had took of the home right before Marilyn died. So I had pictures of the refrigerator. I knew what it looked like. I didn't tell them that, the people I was going to look at it. And I went out and looked at it, and indeed it was the actual refrigerator. It had been sold to these people by the Nunez family, who were the ones that purchased Marilyn's home after she died. And so they decided to get a new refrigerator, and they sold this one to these people. And then eventually it broke down and they didn't want it anymore. And they thought, well, let's get some money back by selling it again. So they sold it to me. So yes, indeed, I now have Marilyn's refrigerator from her last home in my home.
Well, I remember you kept it in the garage, but it was missing when I was there because it was at the Max Factor Museum,
Right.
which had just been restored.
It's back at the garage now.
So did you meet Mrs. Murray, or how did you get the pictures?
I got the pictures from a man by the name of Patrick Miller, who worked at 20th Century Fox and had came out here in the 70s, early 70s to work. And he befriended Eunice Murray, who then gave him the photos, and then he gave them to me.
Okay.
So way before there was any knowledge of those photos even existing, I had a copy of all of the photos so that we were able to see what her home looked like way before it actually was seen by the rest of the world.
I think when you do look at those photos, and I've seen them, it's very simple and very comfortable.
Well, she had furnished the home beautifully. It was not totally furnished yet, but it was getting there, and she had done really good things already with it and had very good taste.
She did. All the hacienda,
The way she decorated.
it matched the style
I'm
of the
just sorry
home.
that we didn't see the full completion of everything.
Mhm. Mhm. I think she was in love with the house, to tell you the truth. I think she was, and Joe lent her the money for the down payment. A lot of people don't know that, but he did. Um, I mean, that's how close they'd gotten again. Um, and he cared about her. He wanted
Oh,
her,
yeah.
I think he wanted her to have some stability.
Well, and I think a home would have given her that. And unfortunately, she didn't get to live in it very long, only half a year before she died. But
Well, while we're on personal effects, you have a few things of hers you wanted to show us.
I'm sorry.
You had a few things of hers that you wanted to show us.
Um, okay, I didn't know I was going to.
Oh, I thought we discussed that. I thought you had a few small things that you wanted to
Oh,
show us.
I can go get a couple if you want to put on hold for a minute.
I
Sure.
can pause it, yeah.
All right, I'll be right back.
All right. Okay, Greg has returned with personal effects of Marilyn Monroe.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
One of them is this, which is a tile from her kitchen. She had gone to Mexico and bought these tiles along with some tiles for her bathroom. And so she had those areas tiled with these beautiful Mexican tiles. And eventually, I think these were extra leftover tiles. Obviously, they weren't the ones that were actually put up in her home, but they were in her garage. And they're beautiful. I mean, look at the beautiful workmanship on that and the way they're painted, hand painted. So that's one item I have. Another thing that I do have, which is I think kind of exciting, and it's I'm sure hard to see because of the reflection here, but this is a check she wrote to Eunice Murray on August the 4th, 1962, which is the day she died. And as you can see, there's a deceased over here on that side. Eunice was not able to cash the check for quite a while because they froze her account. Marilyn's account so that they couldn't get it for a while. I think she had to wait a year or two to get paid, but I'm guessing this is what she was paid for her services as a housekeeper. Uh,
Okay.
but I mean, the unique part, of course, is that this check was written the day she died.
Mhm.
So it kind of sad in a way. So those are a couple of things that I have. The other stuff I have are larger items, things that were like things she wore, things that she furniture, and I can't really bring that stuff into the room.
Can you tell us a little bit about the bedroom furniture?
Sure. She really only had one piece of furniture in the bedroom outside of the bed, and that was a bedroom dresser that she had, where you can see that she threw a lot of clothes over top of the dresser, and then I'm sure, had the drawers full of various things. Um, and I was lucky enough at an auction, again about 20 years ago, to be able to get that particular piece of furniture. And in addition, since then, I've gotten her china cabinet, her footstool, a painting, a chair, a little coffee table, all things from her home, things that she had mostly purchased in Mexico uh, for the home. So I feel like I have a little bit of Marilyn's home now in my home, and that makes me very happy to think that.
Well, I wanted to thank you, Greg, for your time, and I want to leave you with two questions.
Sure.
How would you like Marilyn remembered?
Well, I think I'd like to remember the way she's being remembered by people loving her the way that they are, and appreciating what an amazing woman she was. And I think we're getting away from the so much the sex symbol thing now, into seeing all the beauty that Marilyn had to offer. And there was, as you know, a recent CNN documentary on her, 4 hours worth, which I brought a lot of that out, of how much she gave the world and how incredible she was.
I don't have cable, so I wasn't able to see it yet.
Ah, maybe they'll do it on DVD or something.
My second question is, how do you want to be remembered?
How do I want to remember it? Personally, me?
Yes.
Um, I guess if people remember that I tried my best to honor Marilyn, and that she has been the focus of my life and how important she was to me. She has colored my life more than anybody else ever has. And I hope the people recognized how much I love her and cared for her, and how grateful I am that somehow I got to be as involved with Marilyn as I have been.
And I have, I think two last questions came into
Oh,
my mind just real
okay.
quick. Uh, Actually, I'll put it into one. Which film and which book would you suggest to any Maryland newcomer that they read or watch first?
Hmm. Good question. I guess if you want to just see a Marilyn film, which would be sort of Marilyn being Marilyn early in her life. Well, or just sort of get started on Marilyn, probably watch Gentlemen for Blondes, because I think she's such fun in that film, and it will then hopefully encourage you to watch all the films after that. Because I never get tired of Gentlemen for Blondes. I just think it's such a colorful, fun movie, and Marilyn seems to be having such a great time. It's really her first big musical role, and she's just looks like she's really enjoying every moment of it. Um, and the other part of the question was,
Which book would you
which
suggest?
book? Um, Probably the Marilyn by Donald Spoto. It's so well written and so well researched. I think that it's a great way to get to know Marilyn, because it's obvious that Donald loved Marilyn when he wrote the book. It comes from every page, and Donald's writing is so fabulous. Definitely, there's a lot of other good books out there too, but maybe that's the one I would start with. And then there's 2 or 3 others I would recommend after that.
Well, stick with me after I stop the recording. I have a quick question for you
Okay.
privately, and
Okay.
thank you for joining us today, Greg.
Thank
And
you for having me.
if anybody's interested in contacting Greg through Marilyn Remembered, I'm not sure of the contact information for
It's very
Marilyn.
easy. Marilyn Remembered fanclub.com.
Okay, okay. I hope that we brought some information to people who are not familiar with Marilyn Monroe, which I'm sure there are plenty of you who are not, and especially with her personal side of her life, and that we brought some new information to those of you who are. And I'm so glad that this was our premiere episode, and I think we did a great job. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Greg.
Mhm.